Hello everyone, thank you for joining Shift Your Perspective with Rockfon Sequence. This webinar is sponsored and presented by Rockfon. My name is Tawin, AWCI's Education Program Manager. At this time, I'd like to welcome our presenter, Michael Thill. Michael has worked in the commercial sealing industry since 2019 with a focus on metal sealing systems. After supporting multiple metal sealing product launches in product management, he now serves as Specialty Sales District Sales Manager at Rockfon North America, bringing practical insight into specification, installation methods, and field performance. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Ty. I appreciate that. So we can go ahead and get started, right, Tal?
Yes.
Beautiful. So yeah, I appreciate the introduction and everyone for being on today. Give me a little chance to tell you about Sequence and product offering. Like Tom mentioned, my official title, it's a bit of a mouthful, but district sales manager, but my entire focus at Rockfon is all about our specialty metal sealing products. So we've got a complete metal sealing product portfolio. I'll talk about that a little bit at the end, in addition to some of our stone wool, acoustical tile, and Chicago metallic grid. But what we're going to talk about today is the newest addition to our metal portfolio, something we're really excited about, and that's our Sequence linear metal beam baffle system. So this is really fresh to the market, launched within the last 5 to 6 months. And it's something that we were missing for quite a while, but it's something that we saw that the architectural and design community was really asking for. So you guys are probably familiar with it, but there's different metal baffles out there that are thin profile metal baffles. In this case, when I'm talking about a metal beam baffle, it's kind of got that box profile. So it's got a little bit of width, a little bit of height, obviously the long linear plank and length of a baffle, and that gives a little bit more depth, and that's what architects and designers are really after and really specifying now. What's cool about what we've done with this Sequence product offering is we've introduced a lot of unique benefits when it comes to installation and labor savings and whatnot. That's going to really save you some time and money out in the field, and that's something that we'll discuss here today. So a quick overview of the agenda. We'll talk about the product portfolio, the different size offerings that we have, color availability. Again, we'll focus really hard today on the installation side of things. That's where we really have some unique benefits, especially with what we call a RockLock carrier, which I'll talk about. Obviously, some of the little accessories, splices, end caps, things of that nature, acoustical performance. And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the other metal sealing products that we have to offer at Rockfon, a little bit about the stone wool and monolithic acoustical drywall type system that we have as well. And then some of the technical resources and services when it comes to shop drawings and technical and field support that we can offer you with some of these more specialty products. So starting off with the product overview, we're going to come back to this slide a few different times throughout the presentation. This really kind of structures the whole Sequence product offering. So we've got 3 different installation methods. These are all kind of alternatives to one another, right? So traditional methods, you'll have your clip to 15/16 suspension grid, which we offer as well. And then you'll have your independently suspended, if you need free floating baffles with adjustable hanger aircraft cable. We have that method as well. And we'll talk about how those work in depth a little bit later on. And then the one that really separates Rockfon on the Sequence product offering is when we install it with what we call our RockLock carrier system. So we'll come back to this and we'll explore each one of these in depth, but again, that kind of structures the entire Sequence product offering. So we talked about the system designs with Great Clip, independently supported, RockLock install. Size offerings, these are standard size offerings, right? So we have a 1-inch and a 2-inch width available, and anywhere from, we've gone as short as 2 inches tall all the way to 12 inches deep. So that 2-inch wide by 12-inch deep is one of the biggest baffles that we offer. But again, not shown here, we have gone on that 1 inch by 2 inches wide that seems to be a good alternative for things like wood grills or wooden planks and whatnot. And then lengths, we can go anywhere up to 10 feet. That's the maximum length that we have to offer. And that's the standard length for when we install in our independently supported and grid clip installations. And then our standard for our RockLock installation is 8 feet, 96 inches. Now, one question you probably have, and we run into it all the time, can we go custom lengths up to that 10 feet? And the answer is yes, we can. And we have done that and supplied custom length baffles. So if you run into a situation where whether the design dictates it or your hallway or corridor length is only about 5 foot 6 inches, let's say, that is something that we would factory produce for you as opposed to cutting in the field, which obviously can be done as well. Color availability. This is a huge factor when it comes to these linear beam baffles from the architectural and design community. Really important to us was that we made our full metal ceiling finish offering available for Sequence. And that's exactly what we did. So we've got a couple different families, obviously your standard colors, white, black, satin, silver, Winchester gray. We do have premium color options. So we have our 34 color all colors. That's actually something that's available if you're not familiar with our Stonewall acoustical tile product line at Rockfon. We've got 34 colors, various colors of well-being that we're able to supply the acoustical tiles in. We have each one of those colors matched up on the metal ceiling side, not just for Sequence, but for all of our metal ceilings products. So if you had a project that you wanted to match one of your color all acoustical tiles, or you just, there was an architect that really liked that color from the acoustical line, we could paint your entire project with it in the Sequence product as well. And then obviously any RAL, any Sherwin-Williams code, Benjamin Moore code, we can take that code, we can paint the entire project with it. And then lastly, I always like to tell people, if you really like the paint on your wall, you can cut out a piece of that wall, you can send it into Rockfon, we'll get it chip matched, approved, and then we'll paint that whole project with it, which is exactly what we can do with Sequence as well. Wood grains are a huge driving factor with these linear beam baffles. At Rockfon, we've got 3 different families. Woodlands, these are pre-painted wood grain coils that we have sitting on the floor in Chicago where all of these baffles are produced. Those are going to be really quick lead times, really great price points as well. We also have our metalwood, vinyl wood grains. So these are vinyls that are applied to coils, and we have these coils also stacked in Chicago. So again, really great lead times and really competitive pricing there too. And then lastly, wood scenes. This is a post-painted, it's called a dye sublimated painting process. So it's going to be a really high quality finish. It's going to look really great. You do have a little bit longer lead time in there, but you also have our widest offering. So we've got 12 different wood scenes finishes, and in total, we've got 27 different wood grain offerings. So typically, if there is a color spec on a project, or if they're just trying to match up with a floor, wood, door, something of that nature, chances are we're going to have something from the standard offering that can fit. Now I'll get into the installation side. I mentioned earlier, this is really where our unique benefits from the Sequence product offering come into play. And to understand where those unique benefits are coming from, you kind of need to understand the traditional methods for hanging a lot of these other beam baffle products in the marketplace. And a lot of this you guys are, I'm sure, familiar with, but typically it's going to start off with, it's going to be a clip to 15/16 grid installation. And it'll typically start off with your, T-grid install, right? So main runners, 4 foot on center, install your cross tees, create that 4x4, 2x4 module. Then one thing that's important, and you guys know with baffle installations, there is basically an endless amount of spacing between the baffle that can be specified. So baffles can be 4 inches apart, they could be 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, so on and so forth. So in order to do that in a traditional method, you're going to have to get into the T-grid system above and measure along your main runners every different baffle spacing location. So if you have 5,000 square feet of baffles and they're specified to be 4 inches apart from each other, you're going up there, you're marking every 4 inches, and then you're putting your clip placement there. And that's not just one per baffle, that's at least 2, sometimes 3 clips per baffle that you're marking every 4 inches where that's supposed to go on the grid. And you can imagine if you even have a 5,000 or 2,000 square foot job or something of that nature, that baffles are spaced 4 inches on center. That's a lot of getting up there and infield measuring. And then lastly, if you are going to put your clips on your baffles on the ground, then you're going to need to measure typically 48 inches apart, 4 foot apart, where those clips need to be on the baffles, and then install them on the baffles. Now with the Sequence product line from Rockfon, and we'll talk about how we do this, but in some way, shape, or form, we're going to be able to either significantly reduce or completely eliminate all 3 of these steps. Now let's get into how we can do that. And coming back to our application installation methods slide available for Sequence, we're going to start off with what we're calling our RockLock carrier system. Our RockLock carrier system is unique to Rockfon. It's one of our primary methods to actually suspend these Sequence baffles from. What it is 10-foot long carrier, and 10-foot long carrier. It looks just like this. And cool thing about RockLock is it's going to be formed kind of like we would form a Sequence baffle, right? So it'll have a 1-inch width, a 2-inch height. That'll come into play a little bit later, and I'll tell you why that does. But it'll have that open inner cavity. It'll have hanger holes periodically on call it the side or the webbing of the RockLock carrier. And then it'll have these rectangular punches next to every hanger hole location. We call that the tenso tab, and we'll get into a little bit later on why that's important, why you might need that. Now, within the carrier, there's going to be these notches that you see here. Those notches, in between them, there's going to be that nice solid visual there. And those notches are either going to be 2 inches wide or 1 inches wide. And that's just to marry up with whatever width baffle you're using. If you're using a 2-inch wide baffle, it'll go with a 2-inch wide notch. 1-inch wide baffle, that'll go with a 1-inch wide notch. Now, the really cool thing about RockLock, and the thing that's going to really contribute to labor savings, installation costs, and whatnot, is that, like I mentioned before, there's an endless amount of spacings available per your baffle project. It could be 4 inches, it could be 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, so on and so forth. These notches are going to be punched per your project spacing at Rockfon during the time of manufacture. So all of that infield measurements on the baffle spacing, we're doing that all for you within the carrier itself. So again, if you have 6-inch on center baffles, these notches here will be 6 inches apart, and then in between you'll get that nice solid visual. From the installation side, the baffles that are produced to install into this RockLock carrier, they're going to have these rectangular windows every 4 feet to match up with the carrier. All you're doing is bringing your baffle up to place and locking it in onto those notches. Then you're going to install this little indexing clip. That's just to keep that baffle nice and tight. And you're good to go. Now these indexing clips, as far as accessibility goes, pretty easy. Just put a little bit of pressure on it, you can knock it out, and then you can release the baffles fairly straightforward like that. But what's cool about those different aspects of the RockLock carrier is your typical main runner across the installation. This is a self-scoring system. So all you're doing with RockLock is installing your carriers 4 foot on center, no cross tees. The baffles themselves are actually going to act to score out the system. So self-scoring system, carriers 4 foot on center, then you move on to your spacing. Like I said before, typical installation, you're going up on that T-grid, you're going along your main runners, you're marking every 4 inches, here's where my baffle's going to go, clip, baffle. With the RockLock system, all that's going away. All that measurement on spacing is already done for you. So all you're doing, carrier's 4 foot on center, spacing is done, grid clip locations, that's all done for you with those rectangular windows, putting your baffle into place. So again, carrier's 4 foot on center, bring your baffle up, install it, that's it. So obviously saving a significant amount of time, money, labor on a lot of those previous measurements in the field. Some of those features that I talked about before, I mentioned those Tensilo tabs, those little rectangular windows that are by every hanger hole location. What I think is really cool about this entire Sequence product line is the attention to detail throughout the design process. It was all done or intended to be done with the contractor and the installation in mind. So I mentioned before, these RockLock carriers are formed just like a Sequence baffle. So it actually does have that kind of open cavity within the carrier. So we were a little concerned, our lead engineer on the project was a little concerned about when you tie in those 12 gauge hanger wires, as you tie them in, potentially kind of pushing in those tops of the carriers. So those rectangular tabs are designed to, before you tie in those carriers, you just punch them in from opposing sides. They'll kind of apply a pressure to the opposite side of the carrier. And when you tie in those hanging wires, they'll keep it nice and rigid and it'll prevent it from even beginning to cave in on you. Secondly, again, because we formed this just like we would a Sequence baffle, cool thing is you can do it in black, which is pretty much the standard, or you can do it in any matching finish to your Sequence baffle, or any finish available as well. So in a lot of instances, architects, designers, they want to hide that carrier system, either by matching the baffle or matching the painted ceiling above it. You're going to be able to do that really easily with the RockLock system. Or if you want to do the same wood grain as your baffle system, you can do that too. So that's definitely a huge benefit that we're constantly talking about with architects and designers. Now, it's one thing for me to go through the slides and show you the still images, but I do have a really quick video that just illustrates exactly what I've been through on the previous slides. So we've got longer, more detailed installation videos that are available online. We've also got installation guides available as well. That was just to kind of give you an illustration, a visual illustration of what we've been through, but we'll definitely be able to follow up with you guys with more detailed videos and installation guides as well. Now, we do understand that there is a time and place for other installation methods as well. And that's why we wanted to make sure that we did offer your clip to 15/16 grid as well as that independently supported. So moving on to our clip to 15/16 grid, which we have all 15/16 grid available at Rockfon with our Chicago metallic grid. The way that that's going to work, these baffles are going to be produced a little bit differently as opposed to those rectangular windows punched on the sides of the baffle. You're going to have these little grid clip locations pre-punched on the baffle itself. So instead of having to measure that out in the field, that's going to be all done for you at the factory, typically 6 inches on center just to give you a little bit more flexibility. We're going to have 2 available clips. They're going to be assembled at the factory just like this. So a 1 inch and a 2 inch clip, obviously designed to go with either a 1 inch or 2 inch wide baffle. And the best way to describe the clip is it's got 2 components to it. Right, you've got the part that attaches to the baffle, and then on the top piece of it, that's going to be a typical swivel clip, caddy clip, that'll snap onto the 15/16 face of the grid. And again, just to clarify, these are pre-assembled at Rockfon, ready to install. So the way that these install, you're going to first slide in the baffle attachment piece of the clip onto this pre-punch grid clip location. It's going to have a little retention feature that'll allow it to snap into place once you place it on those 2 little rectangular punches right there. Once it's snapped into place, in a seismic installation, for example, you'd be able to drill it through with these pre-punched pilot holes. If not, then from there, you're going to move on to the swivel clip. And like I mentioned, that's just going to snap like typical onto a 15/16 face of the grid. Now, a lot more traditional installation with this method here, but one thing that we are able to offer to you here is instead of measuring on the baffle where those clips need to go, that's all going to be done for you at the factory. Again, with those grid clip locations being every 6 inches, know exactly where to place your clips out in the field. Now, when this type of installation might come into play over something like RockLock, you could use it with a 360 painted grid, which at Rockfon we call our cube grid system. That's something that we actually utilize as a standalone system as well, because it is so designer friendly. But in this case, you can really highlight the grid along with the baffles and keep that really open plenum as well when you use sequence with cube grid. If you're creating different patterns or layouts like the radial that you'll see here on the right, that swivel clip allows you to create those different patterns. So obviously we would put together the grid layout for you during the shop drawing process. So you know exactly, always have something to clip onto with the baffle. And then when you install your baffles, you'll just be able to use that swivel clip to swivel the baffle into the right position. And then lastly, at Rockfon, we have our curve grid. That's a 15/16 grid, 15/16 face grid that we factory curve to the proper radius. And then obviously that 15/16 clip will be able just to clip onto the face of the grid and then kind of follow the contours of the curve with the baffles. And then the last installation method that we offer at Rockfon is this independently supported. Again, if you need something that's freely hanging in space, this would be a good option for that. We'll provide all the hardware for you and the adjustable hanger suspension kit as well. They'll have that gripple attachment that allow you to easily adjust to the right suspension height that you need. So just like our 15/16 install, we'll have a 1-inch and a 2-inch hardware kit available along with that suspension kit. The hardware kit's going to consist of a baffle attachment piece, a screw, and an eye nut. The way that it installs is pretty easy. You're just going to feed that screw through that center hole of the baffle attachment clip, screw in your eye nut, attach to the baffle, and then that adjustable gripple cable will just loop right through that eye nut, and then you can adjust it to the proper suspension height as needed. So going through some additional accessories for the sequence product offering. First one is splices. So obviously there's going to be plenty of instances where you go beyond the 10-foot run that is the maximum length. In those instances, we do have splices that can be any matching finish to the baffle itself. The way that the splices are going to install, we have a volcano. That's the Rockfon volcano that's used as a centering point. That just slips within the baffle. You center it within the Rockfon volcano, so you have even distribution on both sides. It is a 12-inch length, so you have a little bit more meat on the bone to play with. Then you'll install your adjacent baffle. The cool thing too that I think we have throughout the sequence offering is all of the pilot holes are pre-drilled for you. So we're going to have 4 different pilot holes pre-punched onto the ends of each baffle, and same thing on the actual splice itself. So you're not creating any new holes in the field. Once you install that splice, zip a couple screws in those pilot holes that are already there for you, bring in the baffle, and do the same thing on the other side. So you're not creating, again, any new drill holes on site. It's all done for you at the factory. Additionally, end caps, we have end caps for all of our baffle sizes and heights, and those would come in matching finishes. So same thing with our splices. Those end caps are going to have 2 pilot holes that are pre-punched onto the top legs there. Once you slide it into your baffle, just insert it into the ends like that. You can zip a couple screws in there. Those baffles will again have those 2 pilot holes in there as well, and you're good to go. So obviously acoustics, Rockfon we're all about acoustics throughout all of our product offerings, stone wool, metal ceilings, and of course, sequence now. So wanted to test a few different variations just to make sure that we're covering all the different installation methods out there and matching up with all specification requirements out there. So as far as perforations go, we have 3 standard perforations, our E, D, and V perf. The way that these are perforated per architectural requirements or demands, I should say, is the sides of the baffle are perforated, and then that bottom face is going to be solid. So that's how all the testing was done, and that's again meet the design requirements of the architect. When you're looking up at the baffle system, you don't necessarily want to see the perforations. You just want that nice clean look of the solid baffles. Acoustical options available or acoustical configurations. First one is we tested all of these ones, again, just to reiterate, but is solid baffles attached to a 15/16 grid with our Rockfon stone wool acoustical tiles installed above it. Second one was if you want to keep that open plenum, so open space between the baffles, we would perforate the baffles and we would factory apply a really thin black non-woven fabric that we call our acoustics backer, and that will give you some acoustical properties as well. We use that acoustics backer with all of our other perforated metal panels and linear panels as well. And then lastly, trying to integrate more with our stone wool side of the business. If you want that even better acoustical performance, we will factory pack a stone wool infill within the baffle. Again, that's done at the factory, and that'll give you even a higher NRC performance. So one might you need one over the other. First one with just that solid baffle to the 15/16 grid and acoustical tile above it. That can actually reach NRCs up to 0.95 when you use our 1-inch thick industrial or Cinema Black, I should say. That's ideal for areas that are requiring closed plenums, like hospitals. We actually worked on a project recently where they wanted the baffle look, but it being a hospital, they had to close the plenum and they had to install acoustical tile behind it. So because we had this configuration tested, that's the route that they're going, and we're able to satisfy those needs pretty easily. Second option with that perforated baffle and acoustics backer, and it all depends on the spacing and the size of the baffle being used, but some configurations can reach up to 0.95 NRC and really tighten deep baffles. And it's an economical option if you want to maintain that open plenum, but still get acoustics as well. And then lastly, when you insert that stone wool, then the baffle, on average, that's going to increase your NRC about 20 points. So again, if you want to keep that open plenum, but you really need great acoustics, that's where you'll use that stone wool factory applied infill. So again, whether the configuration is solid in 15/16 or perforated, and whatever the NRC performance is, there's a really high probability that we're going to be able to meet it with one of our available configurations. So that kind of wraps up about Sequence. I did just want to quickly review some of the other metal ceiling products that we have to offer, as well as some of our stone wool products too. So within the specialty metal product offering, one of the great things about Chicago Metallic is we've been making metal products for 60 to 70 years. And that includes some of these specialty metal products as well, which are all made in our factory in Chicago. So first types of offering we have, we call it our core 5, but these are the products that make up the vast amount of the metal ceilings projects out there. We have our Infinity Perimeter Trim. That's your extruded aluminum decorative trim that can be used around metal panels or our stone wool acoustical tiles. So those could be either standard straight pieces, they could be knife razor edge pieces, concealed edge pieces. We have a few different profiles within the Infinity family. We do have a couple different programs. We've got standard straight pieces of Infinity that are pre-painted and ready to go, stacked and pre-boxed in Chicago, along with the various grid clips and splices required. or we can engineer these pieces with our Infinity Engineered program. In those cases, we'll produce a set of shop drawings based on your drawings that you submit to us, and we will either curve, we'll cut to length, we'll factory miter all the pieces in-house. We'll engrave them, and that'll tie together with a set of shop drawings that we'll provide to you on site. So in that instance, you're putting it together basically like a Lego kit or an IKEA set. On top of our Infinity offering, we do have our planar linear metal ceiling offering. So those long linear metal planks that can get anywhere from 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inch, or 8-inch wide panels. We have our universal symmetrical carrier that we call it, that can be used interior and exterior, as well as some different custom installations as well. You'll see there that photo at the bottom where we did a little bit of a vaulted curved ceiling down the wall. Our spanner torsion spring system, these are your concealed metal panel systems that connect to one of our provided slotted suspension grids. Panels just snap into place with springs. Can be used interior or exterior, and they can be your typical 2x2 all the way to a 2-foot by 10-foot, or they can be a large format as big as 4-foot wide by 10-foot in length. And the cool thing about torsion spring, we'll take a look here in a second on a couple of cool projects that we've done. This is probably our most customizable system. So as you can see here, if you have a radial design or something similar, torsion spring is definitely the one that we can match that design criteria and do some really cool stuff with. We have your typical lay-in systems with our Plano style lay-in. They're compatible with all of our Chicago metallic grids, square lay-in, 15/16 reveal, 9/16 reveal, and also a 3-dimensional set of panels in there, so they can go straight down or straight up or even diagonal. And then lastly, the one that we've talked about today with our sequence linear beam baffles, that kind of rounds out our core group of offering from the metal ceiling side. And then we do have more of that open cell type system. So our curved grid, we have a few different options there. Those are your curved metal panel systems, metalscapes and graph grid. Those are your expanded metal mesh offerings and your welded wire offerings that lay in one of our 360 painted cube grid or our typical Chicago metallic grid systems. Magna T-cell, that's more of your traditional open cell panel. We have 3-inch cell sizes all the way to 12-inch cell sizes, and those lay into our 4000 series 9/16 faced Chicago metallic grid. You can see here that's a photo from O'Hare Airport, Terminal 5, where we combine that with another one of our metal ceilings products. Cube grid, that's one we mentioned before. It's a great pairing with sequence. It's our 360 painted grid offering. This is a project down south that was used only cube grid as a centerpiece. The cool thing about cube grid that kind of appeals to designers is there's no unused slots or hanger holes, so it gives you that really clean, slick look. And then lastly is beam grid. This is kind of a variation of sequence. You get that beam baffle type of look, but instead of a baffle system, it's more of an open cell modular look like you see in the photo here. One of the things too that I love about working on the Rockfon specialty side is we always try to make the customer first, and we always are willing to get on calls with you. We'll review shop drawings with you, whatever it takes. We're willing to go that extra mile. I mentioned earlier, but all of our metal ceilings products are produced at our headquarters in Chicago. So on one side of the plant, you've got metal being produced, and then on the other side of the plant is where all of our Chicago metallic grid is produced as well. And then on the other side of that metal ceilings factory is our specialty services team. So if you have a project that is going into production, the guy who drew it is able to just step out onto that floor and watch it being made. So is the guy that designed it, so is the estimator that quoted it and is managing the project. Everything is right there. Everyone's communicating with each other, and we have that ability to be flexible and be proactive about our projects. Some of the services that we do have to offer. So in Chicago, we've got 3 application designers that are constantly doing custom details, pre-designed details, but also shop drawings for every project. We can do BIM file. We do have BIM files that are on the website, as well as CAD details, standard 2D details. But we can do some 3D modeling to help complex project conditions that I'll talk about in a second. I mentioned our estimating team. They're more like project managers, project coordinators. Anytime you submit for a quote, they'll be the ones that dig into the drawings for you. They'll do the takeoffs for you, and they'll manage that project from the time it's quoted all the way to seeing it created and leaving the door. We do have a technical services hotline, and we'll offer some in-field support if that's required on the job site. And then getting into some of those custom project solutions, this is a really good example here. This uses our Spanner torsion spring product. This is down in Florida with the Mayo Clinic, one of their new hospital buildings down there. There was a really unique design criteria for not just a radial ceiling like you see here, but also a pitched slope ceiling. And it made it a lot more complex on the design side and the manufacturing side. There ended up being close to 40 different panel sizes that were as little as 1 degree different from one another as far as the radius. But we were constantly on the phone with the architect, designer, and also the subcontractor to make sure that everyone was clear throughout, that the shop drawings were clear, because it's not possible to discern a 1 degree difference out in the field when you are looking at 2 panels. We actually marked on the backside of the panels a different engraving. Those married up with the same engravings on the actual shop drawings. So for the contractor, they were able to take those panels, match them to shop drawings, put them in the correct position, and this project actually went off pretty much without a hitch, which was a really proud achievement for the whole specialty team. And that's something that we're willing to do to make it as easy as possible, even on these more complex custom conditions. Fabricated metal solutions. This is our planar linear metal system. It's tough to see here from the screen, but there was one condition on this project down North Carolina that required a mitered condition. So that's something that we produced a custom detail on ahead of time, and then we factory mitered these panels so that they met at a really nice 90-degree angle. Again, project turned out great. On top of that, we'll go above and beyond when it comes to shop drawings. We'll show the custom details where they're needed, but also on a project like this, there was a design requirement for those different colors and different widths, which you can do on our symmetrical carrier with our planar system. So we actually, in order to make it as easy as possible for the installer, we drew in the pattern on the shop drawing that specified the width and the color of which each panel needs to go. And then we created a numbering system. So again, it was easier for that installer on site to match up the panels with the shop drawings and the installation. Mentioned interior and exterior capabilities. We have that with a few of our different product lines. This is a planar linear metal system again, project out in Florida, which has, as you guys know, pretty heavy hurricane and wind conditions that we're able to meet. This is another example too of kind of going a little bit above and beyond to support the project in some complex conditions. In this particular instance, shop drawings were done, everyone was on site, and what wasn't captured in the architectural and construction drawings was that there was 4 different elevations coming into play with the ceiling. So in order to help kind of push through and still meet the project timelines, some in-field measurements were sent back to us in Chicago. Our engineering and specialty team actually modeled the condition and the site up in Chicago using those elevations. We redrew the project in order to make sure that the linear metal was able to work with the ceiling design. And the end result is what you see there with those kind of pizza wedge shape where all 4 panels came to get, all 4 elevations came together at that really nice singular point. Compatibility with all of our stone wool acoustical tiles and our monolithic mono acoustical system that installs just like drywall. I'll talk about that here in a second. But our infinity perimeter trim, just like our metal ceiling panels, it can come in all 34 color all offerings. This is a project up in New Jersey that married up with a few different color all ceiling tiles as well. But all of our infinity trim is compatible with our acoustical tiles as well as our metal ceilings products. In addition to that, we have an infinity drywall profile that is compatible with that monolithic drywall type stone wool system that we offer. And then custom color capabilities. I mentioned pretty much any custom color out there we're able to match. This was Chili's, or Five Guys, I should say, headquarters. They had their preference of, I think they called it a chili red. We were able to match that. We supplied our cube grid system and had that throughout their entire headquarters. And like I mentioned, just as a final slide here, and there's always opportunities, for going on our website. You can scan that QR code to check out a few of our other products too. But we offer a complete ceiling product line at Rockfon. So we focus more on the metal ceiling side today and sequence. But I mentioned, we have an entire product portfolio of stone wool based acoustical products. Stone wool is great in the fact that it's 100% relative humidity resistant, excellent against moisture, no mold and mildew growth, doesn't require climatization when you're bringing it on site. It offers a lot of those benefits that traditional acoustical tiles really can't, but it also gives you some of those design criteria with the color all, as well as our white surfaces. We do offer that same stone wool technology within, we call it our mono acoustic ceiling. I've mentioned that a few times, but that installs very similarly to drywall. You guys are probably familiar with some of those systems in the marketplace. It installs onto our Chicago metallic drywall grid, being 4 foot by 6 foot sheets. We provide you all the joint compound, tape, and the finished render, and that gets you up to a 0.95 NRC. That's something that we're introducing colors to later on this year, and it's something that we're willing to discuss and take any of you through our certification course if you contact us with any inquiries on it. And then of course, Chicago Metallic, I mentioned, it's been around for over 100 years, but 60 to 70 of which have been producing suspension grids. So we've got a long history of that, and we're producing all of those grid systems here in Chicago, along with those metal ceiling products. And that's all I have today from my side. Like I said, I appreciate everyone's time. And with that, I'll open this up for any questions.
Thank you, Michael. A couple of questions came in here with number one, will Rockfon work with lighting integration?
Yes, absolutely. So when it comes to sequence, if you have, typically what we'll do is if we get the cut sheet of any light fixture, that's something that we will incorporate into our shop drawing. So if it is sequence, we'll be able to draw that in, hanging typically independently supported in between the baffles. When it comes to our linear metal systems or any of our metal panel systems, again, if we have that cut sheet, we'll be able to draw that into our set of shop drawings, so you know exactly how to treat it, how to work around it with the grid system in a way that makes it also look aesthetically pleasing too and is approved by the architect. So yeah, light fixtures, whether it be sequence or any other metal ceiling products, we work on that type of integration all the time.
Great. Next question, you show a lot of examples here. Can you go vertically with sequence?
We can. So we just started kind of getting into that part of it. We do have the caveat that it should be more than eye level, so 8 feet or so above the ground. But there are a lot of conditions where it just typically kind of goes horizontally and then vertically down the wall just a couple inches. That's something that we're able to use direct attach brackets for. Again, we won't recommend going all the way down to the floor just because, especially high traffic areas, we don't want that rocked into. But yeah, we can go vertically, and we're starting to do that a little bit more on some of these larger projects.
Sounds good. I think you mentioned this before, but can you use sequence in seismic areas?
Yeah, so that's something that you can always contact Rockfon on, and again, we'll work that into shop drawings. We do have some avenues for seismic areas, and we're only continue to expand on those as the product gets more into its lifespan, but we do have avenues for wall-to-wall with possibly attached to 15/16 grid, and we're working through some latest testing on the RockLock carrier as well that will allow us to offer some seismic offerings with that too.
This next question goes back to that house integration. Do you make baffles, linear baffle, cloud baffles with in-house light integration?
We do not have that at this time. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't offer a light fixture within the baffle itself at this time. Like I said, we'll work with any cut sheet or what have you to make sure that it installs properly within or in between the baffles and whatnot. But yeah, at this time, we don't offer one that's directly into the baffle.
And lastly, can RockLock be variably punched?
Yes, absolutely. So we've run into this a few times where um, sometimes you don't want a set sequence, if you will, of baffle spacing. Sometimes a designer is looking for couple baffles punched 4 inches apart, then next pattern of 6 inches and 8 inches, and so on and so forth. So yes, we've actually done that a few different times now, where we can punch that to any type of variable spacing that's required. And on top of that too, if you want to variably place different height baffles within the RockLock carrier, that's also something that we've worked with as well.
Thanks so much. Well, that concludes the Q&A portion. Thanks so much, Michael. Thank you to Rockfon for sponsoring this webinar. And thank you for everyone, to everyone for attending. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.
Thank you.